Behind the lights, the fame, and the flawless beauty lies a truth that shook Hollywood to its core. Black celebrities who were born male but rose to reign as fearless, powerful women. Their transformations broke barriers, defied prejudice, and redefined what it means to live authentically. Some hid their truth for decades, others shouted it from the stage, but all changed history. Are you ready to explore the myths and mysteries Hollywood tried to bury? Stay with us. This journey will leave you speechless. 1. Isis King. Isis King, born October 1, 1985, in Annapolis, Maryland, embodies one of the most powerful transformations in modern entertainment, a journey that began in struggle but evolved into global influence. Assigned male at birth, Isis grew up battling an inner truth that clashed with the expectations of the conservative world around her. Her passion for fashion, creativity, and self-expression was often met with judgment, leaving her feeling isolated, misunderstood, and painfully unseen. When she finally embraced her identity and came out as transgender, the rejection was immediate and devastating. Estranged from her family and with nowhere to turn, Isis found herself homeless in New York City, fighting not just for survival but for the right to exist. In her darkest season, she discovered refuge at the Ali Forney Center, a shelter for LGBTQ+ youth. That safe space became the turning point of her life, where her wounds slowly transformed into purpose and her dreams began to reclaim their shape. Everything changed in 2008 when Isis King made history as the first openly transgender contestant on America's Next Top Model, Cycle 11. Her presence on national television lit a cultural fire, forcing conversations about gender identity, inclusion, and visibility into mainstream homes. Critics questioned her place, but millions of viewers, including Tyra Banks herself, saw her courage. Tyra later funded part of Isis's gender-affirming surgery on the Tyra Banks Show, a moment that symbolized empathy, progress, and a powerful shift in representation. Beyond the show, Isis blossomed into a celebrated model, actress, and activist. She appeared in Pose When They See Us with Love and major fashion campaigns, using every platform to champion diversity, mental health, and the freedom to live authentically. She has also spoken openly about being asexual, emphasizing that her path centers on self-knowledge, healing, and inner peace rather than romance. Today, Isis King stands as a radiant emblem of resilience and dignity. Her beauty is not just in her poses or runway walk, but in her ability to rise from homelessness, rejection, and fear without losing her grace. From New York streets to international billboards, she proves that identity is not a limitation, it is liberation. Through her art and advocacy, Isis continues to redefine representation and remind the world what true strength looks like. 2. Aaron Rose Phillip. Aaron Rose Phillip, born November 10, 2001, in St. John's, Antigua, has risen to become one of the most transformative forces in modern fashion, a living testament to what happens when courage refuses to bow to circumstance. Assigned male at birth, Aaron moved with her family to the Bronx at age 3, searching for better medical care after being diagnosed with cerebral palsy. From the beginning, life placed obstacles in her path: disability, poverty, and Black identity. 3 barriers that often erase people before they can even speak. But Aaron refused erasure. From a young age, she dreamed of modeling, even though the industry had never embraced someone who looked like her. Runways were reserved for the able-bodied, for the traditionally beautiful, and certainly not for a disabled Black transgender girl from the Bronx. Yet, the more impossible the dream seemed, the more determined she became to prove it possible. As a teenager, Aaron began sharing her journey on Tumblr and Twitter, speaking candidly about her disability, her identity, and her transition. At 14, she came out as transgender, documenting every step with bravery far beyond her years. Her authenticity resonated deeply, gathering thousands of supporters who saw in her a voice, the world desperately needed. Then, in 2018, the breakthrough came, a moment that shattered fashion's outdated borders. Erin became the first Black transgender and physically disabled model ever signed to elite model management. It was not simply a contract. It was a cultural shift, a rewriting of who gets permission to be beautiful. Since then, Erin has worked with top designers and walked the runways for Moschino, Kalina Strada, and Marc Jacobs. She has starred in major campaigns for Nike, Sephora, and Dove. Her striking face has appeared on the covers of British Vogue, Paper Magazine, and V Magazine. In 2023, she graced British Vogue's historic reframing fashion issue, curated by Edward Enninful, yet another barrier broken. At just 17, she penned her memoir, This Kid Can Fly. It's about ability, not disability, proving that her influence extends far beyond photographs. Today, Erin uses her platform to fight for disability justice, transgender rights, and racial equity. Despite the hate, the scrutiny, and the pressure, she remains fearless, grounded, outspoken, and purposeful. Erin Rose Phillip didn't just enter the fashion industry. She redefined it. She changed not only how beauty is seen, but who gets to be seen. Her story is an anthem of defiance, pride, and unstoppable self-belief. 3. Jackie Shane. Long before the world had the vocabulary to talk about gender identity, before transgender was understood, respected, or even whispered in public, Jackie Shane was already living her truth beneath the shimmering neon glow of the 1960s rhythm and blues scene. Born on May 15, 1940, in Nashville, Tennessee, Jackie arrived in a world unprepared for someone like her. A world that policed identity, punished difference, and refused to imagine possibilities beyond the rigid lines of gender. Assigned male at birth, Jackie knew early that biology could not confine her spirit. Her voice, smoky, magnetic, aching with soul, became the place where her truth lived long before society allowed her to speak it. By the late 1950s, she moved to Toronto, a city bursting with clubs, music, and cultural rebellion. There, Jackie stepped fully into her womanhood, unapologetic, confident, and unshakably herself. In an era when authenticity was dangerous, Jackie Shane was radiantly, defiantly visible. Toronto embraced her before America ever would. On stage, she was electric, blending James Brown's explosive fire with the wistful emotionality of Billie Holiday. She didn't just sing, she commanded. She held audiences with a presence so powerful it felt spiritual. In 1962, her single Any Other Way became a Canadian hit, climbing to number 2 on the Chum chart and securing her place as one of the most extraordinary R&B figures the country had ever seen. But her success carried a deeper weight. Jackie was not simply an artist, she was a Black transgender woman thriving in a time when both her race and her identity made her a target. Many fans were unaware. Others whispered behind closed doors. Jackie didn't correct them. She didn't hide either. She simply existed, regal, composed, and unbothered by the world's curiosity. Her mere presence was a revolution. In interviews, she spoke openly about who she was, rejecting labels that mocked or diminished her. She insisted she was not a drag queen. She was a woman, full stop. She had no interest in seeking sympathy or justifying her identity to those who refused to understand. Authenticity is freedom, she believed, and she lived that truth long before the world caught up. Despite rising fame, Jackie refused to return to the United States, where she would have been forced into secrecy. She stayed in Canada, performing on television shows like Night Train and the Nashville Sound, quietly building an enduring legacy as one of music's earliest transgender trailblazers. But then, she vanished. In the early 1970s, she stepped away from everything. No final concert, no official statement. Just silence. Rumors spread that she had died, but Jackie was alive, simply exhausted by the prejudice, the spectacle, and the invasive curiosity of a society not ready to honor her humanity. She chose peace over fame. Decades later, in the 2010 The World rediscovered her. The Numero Group released Any Other Way, the complete Jackie Shane, earning a Grammy nomination in 2018. A new generation heard her voice and finally understood the magnitude of the woman behind it. Her final interviews revealed serenity. "I lived my life the way I wanted," she said, "and I never hurt anyone." Jackie Shane passed away in 2019 at 78 years old. But she did not leave behind just music. She left a roadmap for self-love, for courage, for living beyond the boundaries the world tries to impose. Jackie was never a tragedy. She was a triumph, a soul queen carved from defiance, beauty, and truth. 4. Janet Mock. Janet Mock, born March 10, 1983, in Honolulu, Hawaii, rose from hardship to become one of the most influential cultural voices of her generation, a writer, director, and activist whose courage reshaped the way the world understands identity. Assigned male at birth as Charles Mock, she grew up in a working-class, multiracial family marked by instability, love, and constant movement. From childhood, Janet sensed a quiet truth inside herself, a truth that grew louder with each passing year. She was living in a body that did not mirror her soul. As a teenager, she refused to silence that truth. She began hormone therapy, and at 18, traveled to Thailand for gender-affirming surgery, a monumental decision requiring sacrifice, resilience, and an unwavering belief in her right to exist authentically. To fund both her transition and her education, she worked as a sex worker in her youth, an experience she later reclaimed with honesty and pride rather than shame. Determined to build the life she envisioned, Janet earned her bachelor's degree at the University of Hawaii and later completed a master's in journalism at New York University. What could have been a story defined by struggle became one fueled by brilliance and ambition. In 2011, her life changed again when she publicly came out as transgender in Marie Claire, becoming one of the first Black trans women to share her story through mainstream media. Her clarity and vulnerability resonated deeply. Her debut memoir, Redefining Realness 2014, became a New York Times bestseller, celebrated for its raw honesty, cultural importance, and powerful reclamation of trans girlhood. She followed it with Surpassing Certainty 2017, chronicling her early adulthood, love, ambition, heartbreak, and becoming. Janet's voice expanded beyond books. She made history with FX's Pose, becoming the first Black transgender woman to write and direct an episode of a major network television series. Her work helped bring ballroom culture and LGBTQ history into the global spotlight. Yet her influence extends far beyond Hollywood. Janet Mock champions gender equality, racial justice, and accurate media representation, using her platform to highlight those forced into silence. She often reminds the world, "We are never more powerful than when we are seen as we truly are." Today, Janet Mock stands as a symbol of truth-telling, brilliance, and transformation, living proof that authenticity is not just a choice, but a revolution. Through her story, she redefined realness for generations yet to come. 5. Madison, T.S. Madison. That sets Madison. Born Madison Hinton on October 22, 1977, in Miami, Florida, T.S. Madison shattered every expectation placed on her before she even had the language to describe who she was. Assigned male at birth and raised in a conservative Black household, she understood early that her inner truth clashed with everything the world demanded of her. By her teenage years, she embraced her femininity with boldness, confidence, and a spirit too powerful to contain. But living out loud came with consequences. At just 16 years old, Madison was kicked out of her home after coming out, thrust into a world hostile to young Black transgender girls. She was alone, broke, and navigating streets that offered no mercy. Yet instead of breaking, Madison transformed her struggle into strategy. She entered the adult entertainment industry, not as a sign of defeat, but as an act of reclamation. It was her way of funding her transition, controlling her image, and building autonomy in a society that had tried to repress her. It wasn't exploitation, it was ownership. A black transgender woman rewriting her narrative in real time. Her rise into mainstream visibility began in 2013 when her hilarious, raw, and unfiltered videos went viral on Vine and YouTube. Madison's blend of humor, honesty, and unapologetic authenticity resonated instantly. She wasn't simply visible, she was unforgettable. And she was building an empire from her living room. By 2016, T.S. Madison had evolved from viral sensation to cultural force. She was featured in documentaries like The Trans List on HBO, celebrated for her voice, her advocacy, and her singular charisma. Then came the breakthrough that redefined her legacy. In 2021, Madison became the first black transgender woman to produce and star in her own reality series, The T.S. Madison Experience on WETV. The show wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural milestone, offering an unfiltered look at what it means to be a black trans businesswoman, daughter, friend, and activist maneuvering through fame and identity. Along the way, Madison made uplifting others her mission. Using her enormous social media platform, she championed LGBTQ rights, racial justice, body positivity, and self-worth. She reminded her audience daily that no system, label, or stereotype could dictate the value of a human life. "My transition wasn't just physical," she famously said, "it was spiritual. I became who I was always meant to be." Her influence only expanded. She co-hosted Queen's Supreme Court with Tiffany New York Pollard, appeared in films like Zola 2020 and Bros 2022, and even collaborated with Beyoncé on Cozy from Renaissance, a defining moment that confirmed her global cultural impact. Madison's story is not one of victimhood, it is a story of victory. She turned rejection into resilience, pain into power, and visibility into liberation. Her life is living proof that authenticity, no matter how costly, is the truest form of freedom. 6. Angelica Ross. Angelica Ross, born November 28, 1980 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, has lived more than one lifetime's worth of transformation. She is a musician, actress, tech founder, activist, but above all, a survivor who rebuilt her world piece by piece. Assigned male at birth and raised in a deeply religious household, Angelica grew up under relentless pressure to embody a version of masculinity that never belonged to her. When she came out as transgender, she was met not with love, but with cruelty and rejection. At just 17, she was forced out of her home, alone, heartbroken, and suddenly responsible for her own survival. That trauma, instead of breaking her, became the fuel for her evolution. After a brief and difficult period in the U.S. Navy, Angelica began her transition and committed herself to creating the life she deserved. But opportunities for trans women, especially black trans women, were almost non-existent. Angelica faced homelessness, discrimination, and moments of despair. Refusing to accept a world that excluded her, she turned to self-education. She taught herself coding, graphic design, and web development, skills that would transform not only her life, but thousands of others. In 2014, she founded TransTech Social Enterprises, a groundbreaking organization offering tech training and employment to LGBTQ+ people, with a focus on trans individuals shut out of traditional workplaces. Angelica turned isolation into innovation, creating a pipeline of opportunity where none existed. Her artistry soon caught the world SIP's attention. In 2018, she captured hearts as Candy Ferocity in Ryan Murphy's revolutionary series Pose, portraying a fierce, vibrant ballroom queen whose tragic storyline became one of the show's most unforgettable moments. She followed that with acclaimed roles in American Horror Story 1984 and AHS, double feature, proving she was as formidable on screen as she was in activism. Angelica's influence expanded far beyond Hollywood. She delivered TED Talks, spearheaded conversations about race, gender, and technology, and in 2020 became the first openly transgender woman to host a presidential town hall in the United States, a historic moment bridging advocacy and national visibility. Today, Angelica Ross stands as both creator and catalyst. From homelessness to red carpets, from self-taught coder to industry trailblazer, she embodies the truth that transformation is not merely physical, it is spiritual. Her story is not defined by pain, but by power. Through her voice, her work, and her unwavering vision, Angelica continues to build a world where every trans person can thrive, not just survive. 7. Laverne Cox. Laverne Cox, born May 29, 1972, in Mobile, Alabama, grew up in a world that labeled her different long before she could name her truth. Assigned male at birth and raised by a determined single mother, Laverne spent her childhood enduring relentless bullying, humiliation, and pressure to suppress her femininity. But even in the midst of confusion and hurt, she discovered a spark, a resilience that refused to be extinguished. She found refuge in dance, performance, and storytelling. In ballet studios and school stages, she finally felt free. The arts allowed her to express the emotions, beauty, and selfhood that society insisted she hide. What others tried to break, performance helped her build. Laverne's path carried her to the Alabama School of Fine Arts and later to Marymount Manhattan College, where she sharpened her craft and embraced her identity. When she arrived in New York to pursue acting, she faced a wall of rejection. Casting directors didn't understand her, didn't see her, or chose not to, but Laverne refused to vanish. She hustled, auditioned, persisted, and waited for the world to catch up. Everything changed in 2013 when she was cast as Sophia Bursette on Netflix's Orange is the New Black. Sophia wasn't just a character, she was a breakthrough. Laverne infused her with humanity, humor, dignity, and depth, turning Sophia into one of television's most unforgettable and beloved figures. The performance not only transformed her career, it transformed the cultural landscape. In 2014, Laverne became the first openly transgender person nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award in an acting category. That same year, she appeared on the cover of Time magazine under the historic headline, "The Transgender Tipping Point." It was more than press, it was a seismic moment in American culture. She went on to win a Daytime Emmy Award as executive producer of Laverne Cox Presents the T-Word, strengthening her role as both artist and advocate. She also made history with the first transgender wax figure at Madame Tussauds and the first transgender cover of Cosmopolitan South Africa. Off-screen, Laverne Cox is a powerhouse for transgender rights, racial justice, and representation. Working with organizations like GLAAD and the Human Rights Campaign, she uses her platform not as a spotlight, but as a megaphone. Laverne Cox's life is not defined by what she overcame, but by what she opened for others. Through courage, brilliance, and unwavering authenticity, she didn't just claim a place in history, she rewrote it, making space for generations to come. 8. Hari Neff Jones. Hari Neff Jones was born in New York City to a Jewish-American mother and an African-American father, a heritage that would later shape her voice as one of the most compelling figures in modern art, film, and fashion. Assigned male at birth, Hari grew up feeling a profound disconnect between how the world saw her and who she knew herself to be. Theater, writing, and performance became her earliest lifelines, spaces where she could breathe, imagine, and exist without apology. At Columbia University, Hari finally found the language, community, and courage to begin her gender transition. It was not just a physical evolution, but an emotional and spiritual rebirth, the moment she stepped into the life she had always envisioned. Her ascent began in the fashion world, where she made history as the first openly transgender model signed to IMG worldwide. Hari instantly captivated audiences with her androgynous beauty, luminous presence, and sharp intellectual charm. She didn't just fit into fashion, she disrupted it. In 2015, she became a breakout runway star, walking for Eckhouse Latta and Adam Selman, and soon appearing in Elle, Vogue, and Glamour. Her rising fame was not only about aesthetics, it was about perspective. Hari spoke boldly, challenging narrow ideas of femininity, desirability, and representation. Her 2020 Calvin Klein Pride campaign, shot alongside her wife Corey Kempster, became an emblem of love, partnership, and liberation. Together, they embodied the truth that transition is not merely a change of body, but an evolution of spirit, one that can be shared, supported, and celebrated. Beyond modeling, Hari emerged as an electrifying actress. Her performances in Transparent, Port Authority, and The Idol showcased her ability to blend vulnerability with razor-sharp intelligence. Each role carried emotional precision, earning her critical admiration. Hari openly identifies as a transgender lesbian, embracing her sexuality with pride and consistently advocating for those who remain unseen, especially plus-size and dark-skinned trans women who are still marginalized even within LGBTQ spaces. Her activism extends onto the page as well. Her essays in Dazed, Vice, and The Guardian dissect race, gender politics, and art with clarity and conviction. She argues that true representation is not generosity, it is truth. Hari Neff Jones stands today as both muse and disruptor, a woman whose voice refuses to be softened or sidelined. Through intellect, beauty, and fearless honesty, she embodies a new era where gender is not a limit, but a spectrum, and where living authentically is the highest form of art. 9. Trace Lysette. Trace Lysette was born on October 14, 1987, in Lexington, Kentucky, and raised in Dayton, Ohio, a place where silence often felt safer than truth. Assigned male at birth, Trace understood from childhood that her soul leaned toward femininity, but expressing that truth in her working-class environment invited ridicule, confusion, and too often violence. She learned early that survival sometimes meant shrinking herself, even as her spirit longed to expand. Sports became her earliest escape. As a teenager, she excelled in track and found solace in movement, rhythm, and the freedom of her own body. Dance and performance art soon followed, places where Trace could breathe, explore, and exist without the constant threat of being misunderstood. But even as she blossomed creatively, she carried a secret, one that would one day shape her entire destiny. In her early 20s, Trace took the courageous step of transitioning. The world, however, was far less ready than she was. Hollywood casting rooms shut their doors before she even crossed the threshold. Directors dismissed her as too complicated, too risky, too much. But Trace refused to disappear. In New York City, she worked as a stripper to fund her transition, pay for acting classes, and rebuild herself from the ground up. Every night on stage, she was reclaiming her body. Every dollar saved was an investment in a future the world insisted she couldn't have. Her breakthrough finally came in 2014 when she was cast as Shay in Amazon's Transparent. Trace's portrayal was tender, grounded, and deeply human. A trans woman depicted not as a stereotype or a tragedy, but as a whole person with dreams, flaws, humor, and heart. It was a performance that shifted the landscape of representation. Then, in 2018, Trace reached an extraordinary milestone with her leading role in Monica 2023, a quiet, devastating indie drama about a trans woman returning home to care for her dying mother. The film premiered in competition at the Venice Film Festival, making Trace the first trans actress to headline a movie in the festival's official selection. Her performance received standing ovations, with critics praising it as one of the most moving portrayals of the decade. Beyond her artistry, Trace has emerged as a powerful voice for justice. She spoke openly about sexual misconduct in Hollywood, helping push the #MeToo movement to include the experiences of trans women, voices so often marginalized, even in conversations about harm. Trace has since graced the covers of The Advocate and Vogue Italia, delivered impassioned speeches at the GLAAD Awards, and fought for authentic casting in film and television. Her on-screen presence, elegant, grounded, fiercely feminine, challenges an industry that once tried to erase her. Trace Lysette doesn't just demand inclusion. She embodies it. Her journey from underground clubs to Venice red carpets is proof that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing visibility in a world that once refused to see you. 10.y Yasmin Finney. Yasmin Finney, born August 30, 2003 in Manchester, England, has become one of the brightest symbols of a new generation, bold, unfiltered, and beautifully authentic. Assigned male at birth and raised in a working-class home, she always sensed she was different. Her childhood unfolded with confusion, bullying, and long stretches of loneliness as she tried to understand her identity in a world that offered almost no reflections of girls like her. When Yasmin came out as transgender in her early teens, the reaction was not celebration but rejection and misunderstanding, sometimes even from the people she loved most, but rather than disappearing into silence, she chose to create her own space and her own voice. She began posting on TikTok, sharing her daily experiences with humor, sharp wit, and vulnerable honesty. Her videos felt like conversations with a friend, and millions of viewers gravitated toward her authenticity. In a digital landscape full of filters and facades, Yasmin Sep's message cut through the noise. You are valid. You deserve to exist. Her rising platform caught the attention of casting directors, leading to her breakthrough role as Elle Argent in Netflix's Heartstopper 2022. Based on Alice Oseman's beloved graphic novels, the show became an international phenomenon, and Yasmin's portrayal of a gentle, intelligent, self-possessed transgender teen touched hearts across the globe. For many viewers, especially young queer people, Elle Argent was a first. A black trans girl on mainstream television, not reduced to pain or tragedy, but shown as loved, supported, and fully human. Yasmin's performance earned her a nomination at the 2023 Kids and Family Emmy Awards, making her one of the youngest trans actors ever recognized at that level. Off-screen, Yasmin uses her voice to challenge subtle and overt discrimination. She has spoken candidly about being banned from dating apps because of her gender identity, revealing the everyday injustices trans women continue to face. Yet she remains hopeful, joyful, and determined, insisting her identity is not a burden but a celebration of truth. At just 21, Yasmin Finney stands at the forefront of cultural change. She is not merely an actress, she is a movement. Her presence expands what young black femininity can look like: powerful, creative, radiant, and free. In every interview, every scene, every smile, Yasmin proves that authenticity will always shine brighter than prejudice. 1. Peppermint. Peppermint, born January 31, 1980 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, grew up in a conservative community where every gesture, every interest, and every hint of femininity was scrutinized. Assigned male at birth, she always sensed that the identity others projected onto her didn't match the truth she carried within. She loved to sing, dance, perform, to shine, but even those passions became targets for ridicule. The world tried to silence her spirit before it had the chance to speak. As a teenager, she found salvation under the warm stage lights of her school theater. On stage, she could finally exist freely, embodying characters who reflected the woman she longed to become. Theater became not just an escape, but a blueprint, the place where she first learned that art could be both sanctuary and revolution. When she moved to New York City, Peppermint stepped fully into her power. She became a beloved fixture in the drag and nightclub scene, celebrated for her wicked humor, razor-sharp wit, and electric stage presence. Her charisma wasn't merely entertaining, it was magnetic. In 2017, everything changed when she made history as the first openly transgender woman to compete on RuPaul's Drag Race, finishing as runner-up in Season 9. Her presence shattered long-standing barriers in the drag world, opening doors for countless performers who had been told their identity disqualified them from greatness. But Peppermint never viewed visibility as enough. She used her platform to talk about gender equity, racial justice, and LGBTQ+ inclusion, turning sequins and spotlight into tools for cultural change. Her historic momentum continued in 2018 when she became the first openly trans woman to originate a principal role on Broadway, starring in Head Over Heels. Her dazzling performance earned widespread praise and a Drama League Award nomination for Outstanding Featured Actress. That moment cemented her as a rare kind of artist, one who entertains, uplifts, and transforms. Peppermint also carved out a space in music, releasing albums like A Girl Like Me and Letters to My Lovers 2020. Her songs blend pop, R&B, and dance influences, exploring love, heartbreak, identity, and triumph with emotional clarity. She has collaborated with artists such as MNAke and DJ Lena Bradford, pushing trans narratives into a music industry that has long ignored them. Beyond the spotlight, Peppermint is a dedicated activist. She serves on the GLAAD board and co-founds initiatives that uplift trans youth and queer artists of color. Her work blends resilience with joy, a balance that only the bravest achieve. Peppermint stands as proof that visibility is not vanity, it is validation. Every performance, every lyric, every speech declares a simple but radical truth. I am here. I exist. I matter. 1-2. Dominique Jackson, born March 20, 1975, in Scarborough, Trinidad and Tobago, began her life in a world shaped by poverty, hardship, and constant danger. Assigned male at birth, she never viewed her femininity as something to conceal. She believed it was sacred, powerful, and undeniably hers, but the world around her rejected that truth with cruelty. Throughout her childhood, Dominique faced relentless verbal harassment and violent physical abuse simply for daring to exist visibly. By age 15, she understood that if she stayed, she might not survive. She fled Trinidad alone and made her way to the United States, hoping for safety. Instead, she found new challenges: homelessness, exploitation, and years spent fighting for every meal, every night of rest, every ounce of dignity. Yet through it all, she refused to break. Her turning point came when she entered the legendary New York City ballroom scene, a sanctuary built by LGBTQ youth who, like her, had nowhere else to go. There, under the lights of the runway, Dominique finally found community, mentorship, and purpose. She joined the House of Sinclair, and later the House of Extravaganza, where she transformed her pain into performance. Her towering presence, razor-sharp walk, and royal poise earned her the coveted title of legend, and she became one of ballroom's most iconic figures. But Dominique always dreamed beyond survival. Her chance arrived when she was cast as Electra Abundance Evangelista in Ryan Murphy's groundbreaking series Pose 2018-2021. The role was more than a breakout, it was destiny. As Electra, Dominique embodied the glamour, rage, vulnerability, and resilience of a Black transgender woman navigating a world determined to erase her. Her commanding monologues, fierce humor, and emotional intensity made Electra one of television's most unforgettable characters. Critics praised her unmatched ability to express both steel and softness, a reflection of her own lived experience. Off-screen, Dominique uses her platform with purpose. She advocates fiercely against racism, transphobia, and gender-based violence, serves as a GLAAD ambassador, champions LGBTQ+ rights at the United Nations, and authored her memoir The Transsexual from Tobago. Dominique Jackson's journey from the streets to global stardom is more than a triumph. It is a masterclass in survival, dignity, and self-creation. From ballroom runways to international stages, she reigns not only as a queen of fashion and television, but as a queen of resilience, truth, and unstoppable power. And that brings us to the end of these extraordinary journeys, stories of bravery, transformation, and Black icons who refuse to let the world define them. They turned struggle into strength, erased the lines forced upon them, and built legacies that continue to inspire millions today. Their lives remind us that authenticity is not a flaw, it's a revolution. Now we want to hear from you. Which story moved you the most? Which moment challenged your perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. If you believe these stories deserve to be told, hit that like button, subscribe to Gazeon, and turn on notifications. More hidden histories, bold truths, and untold stories await you. We'll see you in the next video.